Hi, I'm Jack Draper. Shout out to QualityShot Tennis.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a contender profile for the 2023 Roland Garros. I'm Anthony Hirsch. Happy to present this. We're doing Daniil Medvedev, the new king of clay, some might say, after his huge win at the Rome Masters. Crazy win. I mean, for some people, I'm sure it came out of nowhere, but you know, he has this defensive game that can work well for clay. It's just somehow he's never put it together. Even like he's almost convinced himself he has to be terrible on the surface. Puts it together, beats Tsitsipas, the 2021 Roland Garros finalist. He beats Holger Rune, the quarterfinalist at last year's Roland Garros, you know. Fantastic run he pulls together. So there are a few things that I want to go over. I want to go over kind of Medvedev's past clay results this season. I want to go over his past clay results in past seasons. I want to go over just how his clay stats compare, what his recent form has been, what his play style is, if that can adapt to clay well, and what it's looking like for this Roland Garros. Just these, and also what his draw is for Roland Garros. These different things that you have to consider going into a big event like this. So Medvedev's first opponent is Seyboth Wild, and I've seen a few people raising some alarms for this guy. I know he's a bit of a clay specialist, and he's a young guy, 23 years old. He's been doing pretty well, but honestly, I don't think he's much of a threat. Medvedev's in fantastic form. He's really been able to back up good results with more good results. Seyboth Wild also this month lost to a guy outside of the top 200, almost outside the top 250. So, no offense to Seyboth Wild, but I don't see that one going more than 3 sets, at most 4 sets. I think Medvedev definitely gets through that one. And then he's got Peja or Halys. And I wouldn't worry about either of these guys too. Peja is good on clay. Halys has been doing well on clay. I didn't think his game would adapt that well, although his form's been really good this season, playing well above his ranking, beating a lot of great guys. I remember beating de Minaur, a few other guys, but I don't think he's somebody that much to worry about. He played Medvedev back in Miami, and I was expecting that to be a huge challenge for Daniil, and Daniil just like brushed him aside. I think it was 6-4, 6-2 on the bit slow conditions of Miami. It was a bit quicker this year, and it's not as slow as like Indian Wells, and it's definitely not as slow as Roland Garros. But it was a good sign that Medvedev could get through that one. So even though Halys has that like aggressive game, that big serve that can really sometimes test Medvedev, I don't think it's a big test. So I definitely see Medvedev making third round. I don't even have a worry, to be honest, especially knowing this crazy season where he's backed up finals with finals and just carried on this crazy momentum like a machine. So I'm not seeing it slow down in the first 2 rounds. Then he's got, let's see who he's got next. After the round of 64, we move to the third round, where he's got Nishioka, or maybe JJ Wolf is another name I threw in there, because I don't really like how Nishioka plays on clay. I don't like how Wolf plays on clay either. But I don't know who's getting through this. Medvedev has a good draw. Medvedev has a pretty good draw, and it's like Nishioka can't hurt Medvedev. Both of the guys that I put up here, they're talented guys, but I don't see either of them hurting. Maybe JJ Wolf, if he really kind of like just plays out of his mind and Medvedev drops from his level in Rome, or even Madrid. But I'm just not seeing it. And I love Wolf's one of my favorite players. I also quite like Nishioka and watching him, what he brings to the table. But I don't see it. Medvedev is making a 4th round, in my opinion, in all likelihood. And then he's got Coric or de Minaur. And de Minaur is no threat to Medvedev, in my opinion, but it is important to note that last time they played Paris Masters last year, Medvedev was coming off of Vienna, where he actually played phenomenal, just like amazing defense from way behind the court. His forehand was amazing, hitting these crazy passing shots. His returning was looking a little bit better. I mean, he was getting more depth on his shots. He was a little bit more confident, way more confident, really. I thought he was getting back to the form that we know, and he was playing a little bit better in like ATP finals, but even though he lost all 3 matches, but we never saw the real Medvedev after that. But I felt like that was a flash of him again. I always believed that we would quite soon see this new Medvedev resurge. Vienna was one of the reasons for that. Beat Team in great fashion, beat some other players, Sinner, I believe. Could be wrong about Sinner, but he beat a few players. The point is that I think that in Paris, he really kind of just his level way dropped. His confidence wasn't there. Couldn't get through a tight one with De Minaur. Usually he's very good at these like kind of tight matches. And, you know, De Minaur played well to get through that one, but it was really, Medvedev just wasn't himself in 2022. So I would say that will add to De Minaur's confidence, but also opposite conditions. Paris Masters and Roland Garros. And De Minaur is not comfortable on clay. We don't usually say Medvedev's comfortable on clay, but he looked pretty comfortable last week, the way he was moving. So I like Medvedev to get through that. And Coric, I will say, Coric is actually 4-3 against Medvedev. Daniil has won both of their matches since 2018, which is important to note. No sets going past 6-3. So Coric not winning more than 3 games in any of their sets past 2018 in their 2 matches. That's the more important stat than a 4-3 head-to-head. But I think Coric has the comfort on clay, the controlled aggression. If he's not making errors, that he can really test Medvedev. Coric is now getting into form. Made a semifinal, I believe, in Madrid. So if Medvedev plays Coric in the 4th round, I would have a little bit of like warning signs up that maybe something could happen. I think it'll be interesting, and I think he can hurt him. And then there are other names in there like Dominic Thiem, Jack Draper, which I think are interesting as well. But this is the first round where I won't be totally shocked if Medvedev loses. I could see him losing to one of the guys here. Coric specifically ringing in my mind a little bit. And he could get revenge off of the crazy Dubai match where Coric lost the last 21 points, a victim in the murder by Daniil Medvedev that took place in Dubai. But it's clay. It's a different part of the season. Coric is playing better, and you never know. But Medvedev is still playing a great ball, so we'll see. We'll see, man. But I still expect him to get past the 4th round, and I'm expecting at least a quarterfinal result for Medvedev. That's what I'll say. And then, despite my warning signs there in the quarters, where I do expect Medvedev to get to, he'll most likely have Sinner, maybe Zverev, maybe Dimitrov. Struff is a guy who like rings out in my mind as well. But I'm thinking Sinner. And despite health concerns for Sinner, I'm highly expecting Jannik to make it. And he's like so consistently made it deep in these events. He plays well at RG. Like he always looks amazing at this event. Last year he was injured against Rublev, but he was up in that match. It's all what ifs, but 2020 first man in this millennium to get to the quarterfinals of a slam as a teenager. You know, all these different things. So I think Sinner plays very well at RG, and I think he's going to get there. Dimitrov is interesting to me. He just made a final for the first time in over 5 years, which is more a crazy stat than anything. It's kind of a bit of a weird flex. Like, hey, I made my first final in 5 years. Like, I'm 32 years old, and that should have been my prime. And I really feel it for Dimitrov. Because he was coming off of ATP finals. He should have done better than that. He should have done better. But he didn't. And it sucks. He got close a lot of times. But he's a guy who's a great shot maker. He can be very aggressive. Did well against Medvedev in the slow conditions of Indian Wells, beat him there a couple of years ago. So that's somebody that I could see having a kind of crazy upset, and Dimitrov could reach a Roland Garros semifinal. Let's see. It also depends a lot on Dimitrov's stamina, and the fact that he made a final this week doesn't help either. So that's kind of a long shot. Not a long shot is Jannik Sinner, and that's an interesting contest. Medvedev, I believe, is 6-0 now against Jannik Sinner. But they've never played on clay. And they've only played once off fast indoors. And of course, that was the Miami final this year. But Jannik does seem comfortable on clay. He loves moving on clay. He can still play very aggressively on clay and really dominate and rush opponents. Really powerful game. We saw it in the first match he played in Rome against Thanasi Kokkinakis, where he played one of the best levels we've seen all year and one of the best played sets you'll see in a long time. Won the first 12 points against Thanasi Kokkinakis. Sinner is playing amazing this season. He's going to be extremely confident and feel comfortable on clay, I think. And I don't think that's just like, okay, Medvedev goes through, he's playing well on clay. The thing about their head-to-head is that Sinner can't hit through Medvedev. Clay helps for that, gives Medvedev more time. What are we talking about here? Sinner hasn't won a match. He's down 6-0 in matches. Not in a set, in matches. What are we talking about? Well, I'd say this. Sinner reached 3 straight Masters semis, including Monte Carlo. And he felt ill in Rome, where he was playing incredible. Which is not to say he couldn't have lost to Francisco Cerundolo. Credit to Francisco. He's an amazing player with a fantastic forehand, great mentality. All of that. And he can play well on clay as well, by the way. But I think that Sinner could test Medvedev more than we think. But all in all, I would predict that Medvedev gets through that. But I'm just saying it's not a shoo-in. It's definitely not a shoo-in, and I would not be surprised by Sinner if he pulls through that. Because at the end of the day, I don't think Medvedev's fully confident yet on clay, despite a Rome win. I mean, you always have to think big picture. Mostly nobody expected this from Medvedev to win the Rome Masters, but you have to think big picture. And we could be looking at this Rome Masters just as a one big win on clay, a one Masters title on clay, and then mostly some much better results going forward on clay and in different conditions, which is great. Better competing from Medvedev, better adapting. But and that's great, and this win was deserved. But we could be seeing the last clay Masters that Medvedev wins, and then it's like, in hindsight, we in the future we'll be like, oh, in hindsight we shouldn't have been predicting a huge Roland Garros result for Medvedev. That was kind of almost overachieving. So I'm trying to think through that lens. So I'm just thinking Sinner could have a chance because his tier of play is so high. He feels comfortable on clay. He feels confident. He can also be aggressive. He might get over on Medvedev, who historically doesn't like clay as much. And I think Sinner enjoys really all 3 surfaces a lot. But I say he gets through that, and then he would have Ruud or Rune. Medvedev should feel great if he gets into Ruud. Sorry, and just one last thing. He could have also played Zverev in the last round, and Zverev hopes that Medvedev does not play him, because right now, Zverev, his worst nightmare is Medvedev, who's beaten him Monte Carlo, in Madrid, I believe, in Rome, beat him in Indian Wells. I mean, right now Medvedev is Zverev's worst nightmare, and Zverev doesn't want to play him. And even if Zverev does play Medvedev, I don't know. I'm just thinking Zverev, he's not going to be that much of a test. And neither do I think is Ruud. I don't think Ruud has much that can hurt Medvedev. He has a great record versus Ruud. And then against Rune, he just got one over against Rune in Rome, which is not to say that will happen again in Roland Garros. I think people are too quick if a result happens in an event to say, oh, okay, well, now we have to put this person who won the match over this guy who lost it as the favorite. Like, that's not necessarily true. Tennis is a game of small margins. You have to consider so many different things, and you have to consider likelihoods. If you just go likelihoods by who won the last match, you're going to be one of the worst bettors around. So I think that he should feel great whoever he plays, but I think Rune can also raise it up a notch, and he could get a win. I honestly think that Rune has a great draw and should mostly cruise, especially with the tier of play that he's played this year. No real opponents that can hurt him until the quarterfinals against Ruud. And I don't think health should be a concern. I mean, he took the week off this week after Rome, and I don't know. I think Rune will be fine, and generally I am somebody that is concerned about his physical abilities, but I think that Rune is honestly probably going to be fine going into the semis. About the finals is a better question. If Rune does get to the finals, which is a huge if, but if he makes it to the finals, that's a better question. But to speed this up a little bit, so I'd say though it all looks good from like the fourth round to the semis, there are ways I can see this going downhill. And as much as I'd love like an RG Clay like redemption fairy tale for Medvedev, just feel like one of those names from Rune to Sinner to even Coric or Zverev, Dimitrov, one of those guys might just pull it off. And I'm not as confident in Medvedev on clay as I want to be, even though he was playing at like a hard court last week, and that's a great sign. Moving so well. And we'll get more to that, his recent results and his form. Now I'll speak on Daniil's results in Roland Garros. So he's played the main draw 6 times since 2017, qualies in 2016. He's only 2 times when he's played the tournament has he won a match. And that was starting in 2021. In 2019, which was a great year for Medvedev, by the way, he lost a 2-set lead in the first round to Hugh Herbert, despite a great run earlier in Monte Carlo. And that blowing a 2-set lead is usually a sign of a lack of confidence that you can't quite put it away. Not always, but it's often the case, especially in a first round, and especially against a player who's much lower ranked than Medvedev was at the time. The fact he couldn't put that away despite holding such a big lead. Then in 2020, Martin Fucsovics, I always think looks like well above his ranking. Amazing player, amazing hitter. But he lost to Fucsovics in 4 sets, 6-1 in the 4th. And Fucsovics, I mean, Medvedev is just a better player than that. And if he wants to be a contender, for example, at Roland Garros, then he needs to not be losing to guys like that. So anyway, 17, 18, 19, and 20, all bad losses, especially against Herbert, blowing a 2-set lead, all bad losses. Then he goes into 2021, and with a much better run, he beats Bublik, he beats Paul, he beats Opelka, which some of those guys aren't clay players, but still a good run. And and then he plays Guerin in the 4th round, Christian Guerin, who's, the dirt is basically his home. And he won 6-2, 6-1, finished it off 7-5. That was it. And then he loses to Tsitsipas, who just played amazing that year, just aggressive, fully in control, working the court, Tsitsipas was tough to beat that year, and I think Tsitsipas will still remain tough to beat at Roland Garros. Really loved the way he played that year, and usually when I see somebody play as well as Tsitsipas did at Roland Garros, usually they'll end up winning the tournament or at least having another shot at it again. So I'll just put that out there. And I'm not even the highest on Tsitsipas being like a major champion or multi-major champion, and he's good on clay courts, hard courts. He is. But I'm not the guy to be like, he's going to win Australian Open, French Open. He's going to win all these events, but Tsitsipas or Roland Garros is something to watch out for. Anyway, that being said, so that wasn't a bad loss by Medvedev. Great run to the quarters, even though he lost in straight sets to Steph. And then he didn't lose a fourth set. Sorry, he didn't lose a set until the fourth round last year. Lost to Cilic in straight sets, badly beaten. Cilic was playing great, but not a good loss for Medvedev, and Medvedev really could have competed better. Just, again, Medvedev on clay just gets down on himself when he goes down in the score, and he just doesn't historically compete as well on other surfaces. This year, Medvedev is a gladiator on clay suddenly, and it started in Monte Carlo. He just decided, I don't care where I'm playing so good. I had a horrible season last year. You know what? I'm coming for all of y'all. And I don't care where it is. It could be on clay, it could be on hard, it could be on grass, it could be on ice. If I have a tennis racket in my hand, then I'm winning the match. That's what Medvedev basically said. And now he's competing much better. So I don't want to chalk it all up to these past results, but the past results aren't great. 4 first rounders, 1 good run to the quarters, though some may say that the it's relatively mild opposition up to that point. And then last year, 4th round loses to Cilic like 6-2, 6-3, 6-2, I think. Something like that. So not great history at Roland Garros, and that's one of the reasons I'm a little bit hesitant on thinking that Medvedev is going to win Roland Garros and follow up Rome and do all of this, do all of that. I'm a little bit hesitant and think that we might want to push it back a little bit. And that comes as a Medvedev fan. I'm a Medvedev fan. And that just comes from me thinking realistically, or trying to. And I could be wrong, but that's my thoughts on it. And overall on clay, you know this, he's performed worse on clay than on hard courts. On hard courts, he's fantastic, just amazing player, such a high tier of play, plays unorthodox, but such high talent levels. Even though it may look weird, it may not look flashy, he gets it done, hits these crazy shots from crazy positions that nobody else can do. Looks like a crazy person, stands 100 feet behind the baseline, and yet he can hit a return by you down the line as if it's nothing. So, so I'd say that as well, that on hard courts he's amazing, but on clay courts, he's just over 50% in 53 matches. On grass courts, he's even 66%, well above percentage on clay courts, and he's played 50 matches on grass compared to 53 on clay. Clay is an infinitely longer season than grass courts. Grass is a blip in the season, which we need to improve, by the way. Grass should be longer, but that has nothing to do with anything, but it should be longer. And but his clay is just not as good as the other surfaces, and I chalk it up to a couple of things. It's in the past specifically. Competing. A big part of tennis is when you get down in the score, not to get down on yourself. It's to believe in yourself and know that you have a chance, even if it's a 2% chance. In the past, Medvedev would go in probably with a 0.5% chance in his head that he could pull something off, win the tournament. If he goes down a set, that goes down to 0. He's done. He's out of it. I'm done. Medvedev goes down the score on clay, he's done. He's competing better in the very tight matches like we saw against Zverev in Monte Carlo, for example. He is moving better, which for me is actually the number one thing. Medvedev's game is about being able to hit shots from very difficult positions that are very effective, very aggressive, have the pace on them, which we'll get to my third thing. He is moving so that he can get into those positions, whether it's very difficult ones or not so difficult, but he needs to be able to move well. Regardless of being a 6'6" guy, movement's absolutely essential for Medvedev's game. And when he can't move and slide on the clay like he's learned to do better this year, he can't get into those positions. He's moving way better, sliding better. He's He's really figured it out. He was already moving better in Madrid. He said himself, I'm playing better in Madrid. I don't care I lost to Aslan Karatsev, who has this crazy qualifier run every 2 years. I don't care. He played well. I'm just happy I'm playing well. And he stayed in Madrid and he practiced for a few days, tried to get the movement down on the faster conditions, which I'm sure he loves. And Medvedev said, you know what? I can move on the surface like it's a hard court. I can slide on the surface like it's a hard court. And that's what Medvedev said. And it's really like that. So, and it's the pace that he can get on his shots. His forehand is getting better now. I think he's even hitting over it a little bit more to add some more spin and heaviness, which is obviously great for clay. But just in general, he's moving better. His serve wasn't hitting as much. Obviously, he hits flat a lot of the time. That's why, and he stands a lot behind the baseline. So you would think that his game is great for clay, but there are a few things that take it away from him, like the pace on his shots that he needs despite being so far behind the baseline. He's an aggressive counterpuncher. So there are a few things he's improved now that help his game at least be more decent for clay. That's really helped out. And just improving his movement has been a key factor. Medvedev's form has been incredible. 6 finals of his last 8 events, including finals in Indian Wells, Miami, and Rome. Rome, a first clay event for Medvedev at any level. He's adapted his game to any surface, like I said, any condition. He just has that form. And it's been amazing to watch. Returning way better than he was last year. Just so many things unlocked, I mean, I don't know how much I need to say it. He won 19 matches in a row, won tournaments like Doha, Dubai, Rotterdam, beating great players, Djokovic on the way, Sinner on the way, after being down a set in Rotterdam when Jannik was playing amazing. So many things. Reached the final of Indian Wells, where he's historically, I thought he would never reach the final of Indian Wells. I'll be honest, I never thought that would happen. Never got past a quarterfinal at Indian Wells or Miami. I don't think he'd ever gotten to a quarterfinal in Indian Wells. Always had such weird losses there, like the one against Dimitrov that I actually mentioned earlier. So, and then Miami, he beat, Sinner in the final. And he's had all of these things. I mean, he's just playing amazing. He's moving so well, defending like crazy, just playing his game, amazing backhands. The forehands hitting through the court amazingly, serving fantastic. Mentality is just unbridled. I think he's 34-0 or something after winning the first set. Doesn't let up a lead. 9-0 in deciding sets. Since Korda in Australian Open, Medvedev has been on a different planet. What do I think this bodes for Roland Garros? He has a 7-6 record at Roland Garros. That's just the facts. I always take huge stakes into how well a player has played at a recent event, though with a tiny asterisk. But a player always goes into an event knowing how well they played in the past. It adds to their confidence. And a specific court, people don't put enough weight into that. They put weight into surfaces. But each tennis court is often just a little bit different. The crowds are a little bit different. And that's just the way the human mind works, Every court is a little bit different. If you've visited a court 5 times, you've done well in the past, then you're going to be happy going on to the court. If you've lost first round 5 times, not going to be so happy. But then we go to the asterisk. Look at Rome. Medvedev had never won a match in Rome before a couple weeks ago. Never a match. And yet he wins the whole event, beating some fantastic players on the route. So, we'll see. I think that I still just am not comfortable enough with that 7-6 number, and I'm putting weight into that. And I'm putting weight into the fact that I'm just not as confident in Medvedev on clay week in, week out as I would like to be. Although and his competitive nature, it's much better now, but I would be lying if I said that I was 100% sure that I would be able to rely on that he will play that well week in, week out on clay. Knowing his record, knowing his history. If he repeats Rome again, then I'm gonna totally be different. But to me, one tournament is just not a good enough show for me to put him through to a final. So I mentioned earlier that he has players on the way like Coric, Dimitrov, Sinner, potentially Zverev, Runa, all of these different guys. And to me, I just think one of those guys might get it. He's a pretty good match for each of those guys, but I just think one of those guys might get it. So in terms of my predicted result for Daniil Medvedev, I'm predicting a quarterfinal result. And I say that thinking that there is a decent chance he makes the semis because I like him against every single guy. Like I said, he was moving amazing last week, hitting amazing. Yeah, hitting through the court, just sliding so well, hitting amazing backhands, winning backhand to backhand rallies against anybody on clay right now, the way he's moving up to that shot and just hitting that shot. But at the end of the day, I guess it's just my confidence in Medvedev with what I've seen in the past. I just need him to prove it one more time for me to put him through to, for example, a Roland Garros final before I feel that he's that confident on clay, because I don't even know if Medvedev thinks that he's going to be that comfortable on clay every time as he is on a hard court or something like this. But Medvedev's in great form, and in a way, I hope to be proven wrong, and I hope he makes it past a quarterfinal. Anyway, this has been Anthony Hirsch. I'm going to be streaming more Roland Garros matches, I'm hoping. Anyway, this has been my contender profile for Daniil Medvedev, who new champion on the clay surface. Really broken through, and we'll see how he does in Roland Garros. But I think he has a lot of tough opponents, even if the draw looks fairly favorable. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it goes through. But yeah, I'm Anthony Hirsch. I thank you for watching. Hope you come back for Quality Shot Tennis. We're going to be covering Roland Garros for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be covering Roland Garros as well, a few matches for sure. Yeah, hope you stick around. Please please subscribe to the channel. And yeah, thank you for watching.